Some time ago now, Kathleen Kennedy, the president of Lucasfilm, stated that the Star Wars saga films will always be about the Skywalker family, which makes sense and is something I think we can all agree should be the case. Now, as of late, Lucasfilm and Disney have been very coy about what their stance is on the future of the saga films after Episode 9, which will of course complete the current sequel trilogy. And they're unsure if there will ever even be an Episode 10, which does sound a little ridiculous to me, because of course there will be an Episode 10 someday. Fans will no doubt demand it at some point, and the money to be made off of it would be too much to resist by Disney. The only real questions behind it are, when will it be made, and my guess would be the likely wait a good 10 years or so at least, and who the new Skywalker will be in that trilogy. There is, however, a really good reason why Disney and Lucasfilm won't say that there will be an Episode 10 someday, because it's actually a huge spoiler for the current trilogy. How so? Well, if the saga films will always be about the Skywalkers, it means a Skywalker has to get out of this trilogy alive for Episode 10 to continue the family story. So by saying that Episode 9 may be the last of the saga films, they're telling us there's a possibility that no Skywalker will come out of this alive, and hence keeps the suspense alive. Okay, keeping that in mind, now imagine if the big reveal in Episode 8 is that Rey is not a Skywalker in any way, shape, or form, and that they've already announced the saga films will continue past this current trilogy. Then they'd be basically telling us that Kylo Ren, or his offspring, will make it out of this trilogy alive. Remember that there are only 3 confirmed living Skywalkers right now: Luke, Leia, and Ben Solo, or Kylo Ren if you prefer. Now, with the sad passing of Carrie Fisher recently, we know it's highly unlikely Leia will survive this current trilogy. And even if Luke makes it out of this one alive, which is of course in doubt, it's unlikely he's going to be the star of the next one. That means either Ben Solo will carry on the legacy of the Skywalker name into the next trilogy, or there is another Skywalker we've yet to learn about, which is of course still a small possibility. I'm not sure many have considered that maybe Luke has a child that we've yet to even meet. However, for the sake of this video, let's make a few assumptions, all of which I admit could be wrong, but please just go with me on this. First, let's assume that there will be an Episode 10 someday. Next, let's assume that Rey will not be a Skywalker or Solo. Finally, let's assume there is no unknown Skywalker out there, no child of Luke or of Han and Leia that we've yet to meet. The first thing this means is that Ben Solo has to be the one responsible for the next generation of Skywalkers, barring something unforeseen like a clone of Luke or the reincarnation of Anakin or anything along those lines. And again, for the sake of this argument, let's assume they don't go in a direction like that. So if Ben Solo is the one who has to have a child at some point to bring about the next generation, might it not make sense that it is the child of both the main characters of this current trilogy, Rey and Kylo Ren? Now, I know what you might immediately think. There is no possible way these two end up together. It would be utterly ridiculous and stupid. Rey hates Kylo Ren, so much so that she likely would have killed him at the end of Episode 7 had they not been separated before she got the chance. After all, he'd killed Han, who she thought of as a father she'd never had, and wounded her best friend Finn so bad that he nearly died too. And it's not like Kylo Ren is the biggest fan of Rey's right now after, well, she pretty much kicked his ass. Though one could make the argument that has him more intrigued by her than ever. After all, she was powerful enough to defeat him without training, and he knows she hasn't been trained, or believes she hasn't, when he says at one point to Snoke that she's untrained but stronger than she knows with the Force. Now, to get right into it, I think there is a bond between Rey and Kylo Ren, and even in the StarWars.com databank, it says a mysterious connection links the two of them. What might that connection be? Well, I think it's as simple as they, together somehow, will be the ones who finally bring balance to the Force once and for all, which is another reason why Disney doesn't want to flat out say there will be an Episode 10 someday, because this trilogy will have a finality feel to it, that when the credits of Episode 9 roll, we will know with absolute certainty the Force is in balance, that this will feel and seem like the conclusion of the Skywalker saga. I also think the title of Episode 8, The Last Jedi, is a big clue to this fact. Despite what Lor San Tekka said at the start of Episode 7 about how there could be no balance without the Jedi, there will be no Jedi in the galaxy when this trilogy ends. And yes, you could make the argument that Episode 6 had a finality feel to it also, and that the Force was even in balance, and according to George Lucas it was. But what it really felt like was the Jedi, or the good guys, had won. Similar to how the Sith, or bad guys, won the prequel trilogy. This new trilogy, I feel, will end with neither side winning. And as I said, I think it will end in a way that we all know the Force is in perfect balance. After all, this is what we learned Anakin was supposed to bring about way back in Episode 1. But how do we get there? How do we get to the end of this trilogy with the Force finally in perfect balance? Well, as I've said before many times in previous videos, this trilogy won't be as simple as Rey on the light versus Kylo on the dark. that there will be twists and turns, and that one or both of them will switch sides or at the very least be tempted by the other side. We've already seen and heard that Kylo Ren is conflicted, that he's being pulled on by the light. Now the argument could be made that after killing his father that the light side is no longer pulling on him, that he has finally chosen a side. And in the novelization of The Force Awakens, we all but have it confirmed that Rey tapped into the dark side to defeat Kylo Ren. She was even tempted to kill him before the ground split open and separated them. She even hears a voice in her head telling her to kill him, though we don't know if that was her own inner voice or that of someone else who wanted to see Ben Solo dead. It is interesting to note, again from the novelization, it says that Rey recoiled from the dark side when she chose not to kill Kylo Ren at the end, which would mean that even her hatred for him, which would be at its strongest right after he'd killed Han and nearly killed Finn, was not enough to send her over the edge. So what might be? I think there's a simple answer for that: her parents. What do I mean by that? Again, going under the assumption she's not a Skywalker or Solo, it means there are endless possibilities as to who or even what she could be. It's even possible that Luke will know who she is and won't tell her, not unlike what Obi-Wan did to him all those years ago when he said that Vader had betrayed and murdered his father, from a certain point of view, of course. Now I think Luke will just pretend he has no idea who she is and how she found him, and that he'll be very reluctant to train her for any number of reasons, though he'll likely claim he doesn't train Jedi anymore, but there may be another reason why he doesn't want to do it. Eventually, though, something will happen and he will agree to train her, though he will have his own reasons for doing it, and we, and Rey, may see hints of this, and I'll touch more on that in a little bit. So if not from Luke, how then will Rey, and we the audience, learn about her parents or where she comes from? I think Kylo Ren will be the one that tells her towards the end of the movie, after Luke and Rey have separated for some reason. And I think whatever this secret is that Luke has kept from her will be huge, both in the respect that we the audience will be satisfied with the reveal, that it's not just a matter of you're powerful because you're a Skywalker, but that it will be something unique and new. And it will be a huge in the respect that it will begin to turn Rey against Luke. I think Kylo Ren will then go on to tell Rey more about her beloved teacher Luke, because as they've said, they being those in the know at Lucasfilm, a big part of this movie will be the story of Rey and Luke and the relationship they form. And whatever Kylo Ren starts to tell Rey about Luke will likely shock both Rey and us, the audience. That he has an agenda that none of us have imagined. That he has gone in search of the first Jedi Temple for a very good reason, as they, again meaning those in the know, have already told us. Now, in The Force Awakens, Snoke seems hellbent on just making sure that Luke doesn't come back because he fears new Jedi will rise if he does. He doesn't even seem that interested in destroying or killing him. However, Kylo Ren seemingly wants to find Luke for his own reasons. He even goes against Snoke's commands a couple times to try and find the map to Skywalker, instead of simply making sure it can't fall into the hands of the Resistance, which is Snoke's biggest fear. I think that's because Kylo Ren knows what Luke is up to, hence he'll be able to reveal it to Rey in Episode 8, and that whatever it is, he's certainly not cool with it. Whatever this secret is may even be a part of the reason why he betrayed Luke, killed the students, and turned to the dark side. In The Force Awakens, we were pretty much led to assume that Kylo Ren is a mere puppet of Snoke, but perhaps he is not as much a puppet as we think and actually has his own agenda, and it involves stopping Luke in whatever he's up to. Maybe he's even using Snoke to become more powerful with the dark side so that he can stop Luke, and we do see him all but begging Snoke for his guidance at one point. In the novelization, he even tells Snoke he's immune to the light, and does everything he can to convince Snoke he is fully committed to the dark side and ready for his training to be completed. But in the end, Kylo realizes the only way to finally convince Snoke is to kill his father. Kylo even says to Han before he kills him, "I know what I have to do, but I don't know if I have the strength to do it." And after he kills him, he even says thank you. Maybe, despite all the issues he had with him, Kylo didn't want to kill his father, but knew there was no other way to convince Snoke of his commitment to the dark side. Let's now quickly go to that scene where Kylo Ren is talking to the burnt mask of Vader, a mask that I'm certain has shown him visions. And what were those visions of? It showed him how powerful the darkness is, that it was strong enough to stop and defeat Luke. He then apologizes to his grandfather for feeling it again, the pull to the light, as if this is something he knows he has to deal with in order to fool Snoke to be trained further in the dark arts. He even says Supreme Leader senses it, which is obviously a concern for their plan. He then asks his grandfather, who of course is none other than Anakin Skywalker, the one who was supposed to balance the Force in the first place, to show him again the power of the darkness so that nothing will stand in his way, so that he will be able to finish what he started. And what Anakin started, but clearly failed to finish, was bringing balance to the Force. And the only way to do that now is to eliminate both Luke and Snoke. So basically, what I'm saying here is, what if Luke, in a sense, will be one of the main villains of this trilogy? Not because he's gone to the dark side, but maybe because he's gone to the other extreme, and something he's up to, something I'm not sure I could even begin to guess at, needs to be stopped, and Kylo Ren knows that. And what if Rey and Kylo Ren have a bond because it is they who must stop Snoke, who may be the embodiment of the dark side itself, as hinted at in the book Aftermath Empire's End, and to stop Luke, who may be trying to become the embodiment of the light side in an effort to combat Snoke or for some other reason. And that once these two are destroyed, the Force can finally be in balance. Now, again going back to that scene where Kylo Ren is speaking to Vader's mask, I think there is something else he's been shown in those visions, and that would be Rey and why she is so important, that he will have help in his struggle to stop Luke and Snoke by one who is extremely powerful with the Force. We've again been told that Kylo Ren knows who Rey is, even though he's never met her actually. Likely that's because he has seen her in visions and knows her to be the one who is supposed to help him bring balance to the Force by defeating both Luke and Snoke. It explains why he is so surprised in both the movie and novelization that she is just a scavenger, because he expected her to be something more. It also explains why he tells a random stormtrooper when she's loose on Starkiller Base that she must be found because she's only beginning to test her powers. How does he know that about her? Two other things it explains is why he offered to teach her at the end of their duel, because she is raw and will need to be trained if she is to help him. And it could also explain why, in the novelization, he says it is you when Rey pulls Anakin's saber to her over him. Perhaps in Kylo's visions, he's seen that the other that will help him will be using Anakin's saber, and when it goes to her, all his doubts are erased, and he knows she is the one. Okay, so going back to Rey and Kylo Ren meeting at the end of Episode 8, and of him being the one that tells her the truth about her origin, a truth he's likely been shown in a vision at some point, and of him telling her about Luke's plan, why would she even believe him? Well, I think while Rey and Luke are together, she will, along with the audience, see hints that something is not quite right with Luke, that he's hiding something, which is what I was talking about earlier. And when Kylo tells her everything, it will line up with the hint she has seen that something isn't right with him, and she'll figure out why Luke agreed to finally train her, because he thought she could be used in his plans. At this point, she will reluctantly believe Kylo Ren's story, and even more reluctantly join him, and that could more or less be how Episode 8 ends. And then in Episode 9, the relationship could grow further, especially when Kylo tells her the real reason why he had to kill Han. The great part about all this is that we, the audience, might not even know who to fully trust or believe. We may be shown subtle hints that Kylo Ren is lying to her the whole time, or that we're just misinterpreting it. We, the audience, might also be shown things that Rey isn't privileged to, like an exchange between Luke and the Force Ghosts, for example, which explains his odd behavior and why he has the plan that he does. These are all things that could keep us waiting on the edge of our seat for Episode 9 to finally come in 2019. And yes, if C-3PO were around, he could likely tell us the odds of all this happening, and they likely wouldn't be that good. Still, I think elements of what I said could be right, or at least on the right track. I also fully believe that there is a bond between Rey and Kylo Ren, and not just because the StarWars.com databank says it, though that is pretty good evidence, but because it would make sense to have the destinies of these two characters intertwined to make for a great story, even if it's not an eventual love story they're telling. I also fully believe Kylo has seen Rey in his visions, which is why he seems to know who she is in The Force Awakens, and again seems so surprised that she's just a scavenger and not something more. I also think that Rey saw Kylo Ren in her vision not as a warning, but to again show her what her future is, that she will find herself mixed up in the struggles of the Skywalker family, whether she likes it or not. And what I find very curious is a particular part of the vision described in the novelization version. Many people think this part is supposed to be when Rey is being dropped off on Jakku, but I'd argue that, if you read it carefully, it has nothing to do with that, and actually takes place in the future. What part do I mean? Rey is in some snowy woods and can hear the sounds of battle and the screams of the wounded off in the distance. That's when she hears a voice behind her, a voice that the book implies she is familiar with and heard before, maybe in her dreams. "Stay here, I'll come back for you," it says. She asks, "Where are you?" and starts running towards it when the voice says, "I'll come back, sweetheart, I promise." She keeps calling out to the voice and runs towards it, only to be brought to a halt by a figure emerging from behind some trees. And that's how the vision ends. Again, a lot of people think this dialogue comes from when she's being dropped off on Jakku, but I'd argue the book doesn't imply that at all. Furthermore, I've been told that in the junior novelization of The Force Awakens, which I haven't read so I could be wrong on this, it implies the voice was that of a male Solo. You might right away then assume it was Han saying this to her, but what if it's Ben Solo in the future saying this to Rey? We know that Han used the term sweetheart a time or two when he's talking to Leia, so perhaps Kylo also uses this term, having learned it from his father. Now, it's a totally common term, I know, but it's not one we hear all too often in the Star Wars universe. So what if this is actually a glimpse of some final battle that will take place towards the end of Episode 9, one where Rey and Kylo are now together in more ways than one, and he is telling her to wait there because either she is injured or perhaps unable to fight for another reason. What if she will even be the anchor he will use to keep himself from falling too far down the dark path in his final battle against Luke? We've actually already seen something vaguely similar to this in the book Dark Disciple, which is indeed canon. I'll again admit it's unlikely that I'm dead on with all this, and if I somehow am, I should stop making videos and just play the lottery because I'm the luckiest person in the world. But I think we can be certain of two things to happen at the end of this trilogy: that the Force will finally be in balance, and in a way that even the most casual Star Wars fan or moviegoer will be able to understand that it is. And the other is that they will leave themselves some room to make an episode 10 someday, but not so much that it's obvious that that's their plan. This will need to feel like an end to Star Wars after all. The best way to do both of those, in my opinion, is to see the end of Snoke, who again may be the embodiment of the dark side or something along those lines, and the end of Luke Skywalker, who George Lucas once said was to be the most powerful Jedi ever. And the other thing they likely would need to happen is for Rey and Kylo Ren to fall for each other, as unlikely as it may seem to you right now after Episode 7, and that in the end Kylo Ren gives his life to save Rey, meaning all the Skywalkers will be gone, unless another will be born someday. Well, that's all I got for you this time. Now it's your turn to tell me what you think. Is there a chance Rey and Kylo will end up bringing balance to the Force together because of a bond they share? Do you think I'm on the right track with any or all of this, or way off? Let me know what you think in the comments below, and let's talk some Star Wars. Also, please subscribe to my channel or check out some of my other videos. If you're already a subscriber, then thanks for your continued support. And as always, thanks for watching.